Hey folks, Darren Finkelstein here. Just thought I'd produce this video and share with you my thoughts on the coronavirus and all the weirdness that's going on in the world right now. And as the accountability guy and as a business advisor, some of the tips and ideas that I think be really worth considering for you and your business. Firstly, coronavirus. Wow, it's uncertain times for everybody, and the game keeps changing really, really regularly. And, you know, we've been to a certain extent pretty protected here in Australia from it. We're in our summer, and of course, Europe and the US are going through winter in the other hemisphere. And, you know, we're not even in our flu season yet. So everything we've experienced is going to be ramped up, magnified, 20-fold once we get into our flu season. But what sort of made me want to produce this video is a couple of experiences I've had over the last 2 days that I want to share with you that actually help explain some things that are going on in my head. And I know that with my clients that I've had sessions with, my one-on-one sessions with over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about, because it's a really interesting scenario and time for small business. And big business too, of course. So today is Saturday, and Saturday, it's Grand Prix Saturday here. The Australian Formula One Grand Prix takes place here in Melbourne, and it's just a couple of kilometres from my home. And I'm a petrol head with my mates, and we're going to head to the Grand Prix track on Saturday, which I reckon today is the best day to watch the Formula One Grand Prix. You get all the different cars, different classes running around the track, and it's terrific atmosphere. The sun's shining here in Melbourne, so it would have been a great day out on the track. But of course, we know that event got cancelled, and the circumstances which had happened yesterday were bizarre, to say the least. But something also happened a bit closer to home for me, and I wanted to share that with you because there's similarities between the two and helps explain a whole lot of things. So, as you know, I work closely with Andrew Griffiths, the entrepreneurial futurist, the teacher, the educator, the wonderful author, speaker, all those things, working with entrepreneurial business owners, and deliver some wonderful training courses, materials, retreats, workshops, and coaching services. We were due to run our Speaker 2.0 event in Inverloch, which is a couple of hour drive to the east of Melbourne on the coast, over the next 2 weeks. And 2 weeks ago, we had our Speaker 3 event 3.0, which is the advanced speaking course with a room full of professional speakers that wanted to become better at their craft. So Speaker 2.0 is going on 2 weeks' time, and that was for 10 people, booked at Inverloch, and Andrew and I had a conversation, and his team, the leader, Jason, had a conversation about how, whether the event should actually take place. And it's an interesting conversation. Every business is going to need to have it if they haven't already done so. And, you know, of course, we asked our participants whether they were still keen to come down to Melbourne. Some of them live in Melbourne, but a vast majority of them were interstate. We're going to have to fly down, and they all said they wanted to participate. They felt very comfortable about it, working in a room environment, learning from each other. And Andrew, as the host of the event, wanted to make sure it was a safe and nurturing environment, just like he does with all of his retreats. And the issue came up in internal conversations about insurance and how that's all going to work together, and what happens if someone catches coronavirus and becomes litigious about it. And we of course don't want to have any of those issues. And as business owners, we need to take responsibility for it and make sure that we have the answers to the questions. So, of course, the conversation was had with Andrew's insurance broker about in relation to, are we covered for the event? And because the World Health Organization has deemed coronavirus a pandemic, means that we weren't covered for our event. And that means that if people caught coronavirus while they're away in our 4-day retreat, then technically we could be sued. And if we're sued because we didn't provide a safe place for people to learn in, then our insurance was not going to cover us. And you think about that more, and you think, well, that's actually applies. People have been talking about it with travel insurance over the course of the last couple of weeks. That if you get coronavirus and you're overseas, then travel insurance ain't going to necessarily look after your health costs and get you home and pay for your isolation costs and all that sort of stuff. So all these things are connected. And so we've decided, Andrew decided, that we're going to reschedule Speaker 2.0 and run the event later in the year, so participants can naturally get a refund, of course, as you would, or they could, keep it as a credit, and when the event's rescheduled, they'll participate, and off we go again. But the Grand Prix Corporation yesterday, same sort of scenario. They decided to pull the pin on the event in the morning at 8 o'clock. Why did they decide to do it then? Because it all comes down, and this is my perspective on the take. This is my understanding of what's transpired. Because of the learnings that we've had with Andrew, I get where everybody's coming from now. And that is that any participant, any worker at the event, any crowd member, any audience, any guest, like I was going to be with my mates today on Saturday, go to the Grand Prix Corporation couldn't provide a safe environment for people to come and work in or participate in or enjoy. So therefore, their insurance company wasn't going to cover them. And of course, that meant that they were vulnerable for litigation. In the world we live in today, litigation is rife. So, people are going to want to look at milking an opportunity when they can. So that kind of explains why the Grand Prix was cancelled. But what was really interesting, what transpired, was people covering their ass. And litigation, that's all about people covering their ass. That's happened in other places and other circumstances. Let me explain to you this. The Grand Prix Corporation, using that as a great example, had a contract with the Formula One parent body to deliver an event, had to be ready for site inspection at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning for the first day of the event, and it needed all of its infrastructure and all the things it was promised. It had contractually agreed to in place by that certain time. So what ended up happening is that the Grand Prix Corporation had everybody in place ready to go and made that announcement to the public that were queuing up to be let in. And of course, their gate opening time, the gates weren't open because they weren't going to let anybody in, but they needed to prove to their parent body that they delivered their end of the contract, so they could not be sued. Again, a litigious world we live in. And of course, the Formula One people, they had contracts with the TV broadcast organisations. They had contracts with sponsors. They had a corporate entertaining suite set up, and catering organisations had the food ready to go and had everything prepared. Waiting staff were there. The poor guy, independent business owner in his caravan selling those donuts that I love to buy, they were ready to go. All ready to, with truckloads of donuts that they were going to sell over the course of the 4-day period, prepared and ready because they had a contract to deliver on their end of the bargain. And you can see how everybody's just protecting their ass up the scale, down the scale. It's like a waterfall with a domino effect. So, of course, the Grand Prix got cancelled because ultimately they couldn't, they had no insurance cover. They wanted to protect themselves from being sued by attendees, people like myself. If I caught the coronavirus at the Grand Prix, I could point the finger at them. People that work there, security staff, all that sort of stuff. The thousands and thousands of people that are involved. Same sort of thing is now happening with the sporting events. The AFL made an announcement that it's planning on having games. They're cancelling some games because they can't protect the environment they're in, so therefore their insurance doesn't cover them, so therefore they're not going to hold the events. We've had the comedy festival being cancelled, and I think everybody was waiting to see the Grand Prix, the first big major event, international event of the season, and how that deals with it for other organisations to take a lead and move down that path. Comedy festival's been cancelled. The garden show, flower show's been cancelled. The fashion show's been cancelled. The food and wine festival has been cancelled. Cricket was played yesterday, I think, on the SCG with no audience in place because they couldn't guarantee the health of the audience. Insurance didn't cover it, and back to people being litigious again, and back to that scenario. All these things are linked together, and Andrew Griffiths' event really highlighted for me about how that affects just a small, tiny business running an event for 10 people. So, and I know the government's just come out with a ruling that says officially on Monday in 2 days' time that it can't hold an event for more than 500 people. I don't understand that. We couldn't hold an event for 10 people, so I don't know how they're going to manage 500 people. Anyway, so that's the story that's going on at the moment, but it's all surrounding coronavirus. So let's get back to the start of that conversation again. Interesting, we're in our summer, and this is not the flu season. And if you read up and understanding how this virus affects people, there's a couple of different effects that it has. Sadly, it is a virus that's going to affect those people that have a respiratory problem, asthma. I understand that, that if you poor immune system, perhaps the age, they're not going to, anybody at an age that can't heal and can't mend like younger people, fitter people can do, are going to be susceptible to this virus. And sadly, that's going to have an effect, and some of those people aren't going to survive it. And of course, we know that effect, that devastating effect it has to families and the circle of community around that individual. That's the sad and harsh reality of this virus. On the other side of the coin, the virus can affect people and they just get the flu-like symptoms, but then they'll recover from it. I listened to an interview this morning live on the radio with Peter Dutton, our foreign minister, who was lying in a hospital bed in Brisbane because he has the coronavirus. He was in isolation, and he was talking on the radio over the phone and talking about his experience of it, that he went through flu-like symptoms, the shivers, the aches, the bones, the muscles hurting, all that sort of stuff, and head cold and feeling really, really crook and crappy as you do when you get the flu. But a couple of days now since he's had it, he's now starting to feel better. The temperature has subsided, and he's starting to feel much stronger. And so a couple of days, some people it takes a little longer, and those symptoms will disappear, and you'll recover, and you'll be mended again, and you'll be ready to go and contribute back in life like we used to do before. But sadly, it's knocked everybody around, this scare tactic that's going on, and a lot of it is media driven. And people are stocking up with toilet paper and pasta and rice off the shelves. And I tried to buy some flour the other day. That was all gone from the supermarket. I mean, really, where does all this stuff end? It's sort of a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you can either choose to play in that or not. For me, I'm choosing not to play in it. I'm not stocking up on food. I'm just doing what we would normally do, because at the end of the day, we're not all going to go hungry, and we're just not going. I'm choosing not to play part of this self-fulfilling prophecy, this domino effect of this need to be a doomsday supporter, that you need to stock up, and because the ship's going down. If you look back over history at some of the things that have happened, we look back to 2001, I can talk about that firsthand, when the terrorist attacks hit the World Trade Center and all around the US. And that was the day I lost my job at Apple. It was the day I was made redundant. And I'd been at Apple for 10 years, manager of commercial markets for them, had a wonderful job there, but I lost my job on that day. And we all, as a community, really took us a bit of a while to feel safe again, and how difficult those times were. And it took a few years for people to start to feel comfortable and safe again. And we thrived. We, as an economy, we started to pick up, and we started to bridge the difference that we had before the event took place. And then the share market, house values, superannuation values all increased dramatically thereafter that event, and we all thrived again out of the World Trade Center terrorist attack circa 2001 into the GFC, which hit in 2007. We're riding this wave. The GFC hit in 2007 when we're at the bottom of that U-shaped, that bell curve again. And when that GFC came out, it went on for 2 years. And I remember being in the marine industry at that time, running our boat sales business. And it was really difficult, trying to sell a discretionary spend product like a powerboat at a time when people didn't want to spend any money because things were really freaking tough. And what made it really difficult was that the whole GFC scenario meant that when things are going well, people buy a boat. They got extra cash, they feel comfortable, they splurge, and they buy something for themselves. When things go crap again, guess what? The boat is the first thing to go. It's the last thing you buy, and then when the U-shaped curve hits the bottom, it's the first thing that goes. And it was a really difficult time to be in business. But with that came a time that brought people closer together, that made people feel like they needed to do stuff locally with their families, feel safe at home. And so therefore they weren't spending money splurging on going on overseas trips. They weren't spending money on holidays per se. They wanted to do stuff locally, and the sales of powerboats started to blossom for us because it provided a great alternative to spending money overseas, going on trips when there was this terrorist stuff that was still in the back of people's minds. We were sort of feeling unsure about the world and the safety of the world that we're in. So we wanted to do stuff locally, and boating, of course, as we know, connects people together. It brings our dads and their kids and mums and the whole group, the whole family unit closer together. And so there was an opportunity that came out of that for me to sell more boats during the time of the GFC. You know, now we look at the situation we're in now. It's 2020. It is a new decade. What worked in the past for us as business owners may not be working in the future for us. If we keep doing the same sort of thing, of course, the result we'll get tomorrow and the day after will be the same as the result we got yesterday. Nothing's really going to change. But if you don't move with the times and you don't change, then what happens is new players come into the marketplace. The barrier to entry is simpler. People come into the marketplace and your pie size gets smaller and smaller and smaller and eventually shrinks. So what I'm suggesting to you now is that we're at a fork in the road again, just like we were with the GFC that we knew we came out of, just like the time of the terrorist attacks in 2001 for which we came out of. We're at that fork in the road. You have two choices, and those two choices are really interesting. One is to be the victim, and the other choice we have is to be the victor. And if you want to be the victim, you're going to sit in the corner and you're going to do things tough. You're going to complain and bitch and carry on about why things aren't working out well for you and why me scenario. And it's a negative spiral downslide. If you want to look at things the alternative way and take the other route, which is the victor route, you have an opportunity now to, in a new decade, work out new ways of doing business and turn the times we have ahead of us into wonderful opportunity. If I look back at the times when the GFC was on about the opportunity we had selling powerboats, that same opportunity exists with us now, because as we know that coronavirus is going to pass, we don't know how long that's going to take, but sure as hell the sun's going to rise tomorrow and set during the evening. The tide's going to come in and out, and life goes on. It will come back to wonderful times that we had in the past, and they'll be even better, because that's how history has worked itself out. So there are some suggestions that I've got for you. You know, I listened to a terrific video that Daniel Priestley, who's the owner and founder of Dent Global, put together over the last 24 hours. And he talked about this is a wonderful time for people to reinvent themselves, to reinvent the ways that they're doing business. And it was a terrific video. And with that reinvention, I think there are 4 things that we can do moving forward. The first thing we can do is to process the fact and understand the fact and really truly absorb that it is tough times out there. It's a time of uncertainty. It's a time of, for some people, they're scared. They don't know what the future's going to hold. And I get that. And we all need to appreciate that and respect the fact that some people deal with stuff in that way. The second thing we can do, and we should be doing more of it, is let's just be nice to each other. No more sticking your finger out the window, bipping the horn if someone cuts you off or doesn't turn their indicator on, and when they should do that. What about we do some random acts of kindness just to be good and nice, because we want to start showing that everybody, we're all in this together, we're all doing it tough, and we're all trying to find our way. The third thing we could do is just to be more positive about the opportunities ahead of us. Yes, you can look down the path of saying it's gloom, it's doom, it's tough, it's shit. Yes, it's all those things. Or you can look at positive ways to move forward. And with positivity comes my 4th idea, which is opportunity. Realise that the opportunities ahead of us, if we do things right, are wonderful. Now it's the time when things are a little slower to be able to prepare all your troops, to be able to get your products and services to match those opportunities out there that we can exceed our clients' expectations with. Communicate with our clients. Make sure we're using things like technology. I am now talking to you on Zoom. There's FaceTime, there's WhatsApp, there's Skype, there's an incredible amount of technology that we all have at our fingertips through wonderful, simple things like our iPhones and smartphone devices to communicate with each other. There's no excuses why we can't have a conversation with a client because coronavirus has kept us in self-isolation. Well, you can look at them in the eye just as I am doing with you today over technology, and you can make contact with them if you really want to. Use those resources, use that technology to have conversations with your clients, to identify what new ways you can bring products to market. Look at new ways of which you can solve their problems and help their businesses to grow and thrive. And when you do that, you can charge fair and reasonable money to your clients to do that exercise. And of course, everybody wins by that experience. And the fifth and final thing I have for you today is to make sure that you are being held responsible and fully accountable for your actions. I'll give you a really good example of that. Over the last 24 hours, I got an email from the gym that I'm a member, where I go to a few days a week. And they were saying how at these times of toughness with the coronavirus and times of uncertainty, that they want everybody to go to the gym. The gym's open 24/7, and they were doing everything they possibly can to make sure that their gym was a safe environment for their members like myself to attend. Great. As a member, I thought, wonder what's going to happen with gym over the course of the coronavirus, because, you know, we've got sweaty machines and people are perspiring and we're all touching and doing all that sort of stuff and working with equipment. I wonder what was going to happen with it. Timely, I get an email from them. They're showing some leadership, which is fantastic. And in that email, it talked about the fact that they have done all this research and that they want to provide a clean and safe environment. One of the things they can do quite simply was to provide some towelettes with disinfectant on them, which they're located around the gym, and that we should be urged as members to be using that, which provides a safe environment. Well, that's all well and good in theory. Someone at head office and the marketing team had come up with that, but really that message hadn't been communicated down the line in that particular business. And I talked before about responsibility and accountability. So let's look at that gym. That gym had a responsibility to make sure that someone in their organisation was responsible for those disinfected towelettes and make sure they're always full and they're always ready to use. And so it doesn't matter what time of the day you went to the gym, whether it's like me at 6:30 in the morning, or it's somebody else who's there at lunchtime, or it's a person who's there in the evening, there is always towelettes. No excuses, because everybody's gym cycle is different. An individual in that organisation should have been responsible for that task, and they needed to be held accountable to make sure that those towelettes were there all the time and that someone was checking up on them. My experience with that gym has been, over the past year and a half that I've been a member there, there's never any towelettes there. During the time of the coronavirus now, people are going to be more in need of having that particular product and that service to draw on, to use, to provide a safe working environment. But even when there was no coronavirus and no sense of urgency with their members, they didn't even have those towelettes in place. So make sure, if you're making promises to your clients, that you have people that are responsible and accountable in place. That means, looking at that gym as an example, head office had said to their staff member, Johnny, whatever your name is, you are responsible for making sure that towelettes are in place in this gym, and it is your job to ensure that is in place. That was reflected in his job description. It was reflected in his KPIs, that he wouldn't get his quarterly bonus or his monthly bonus or his annual bonus unless that task had been done, and there was someone in place, some mechanism in place to check that they were always available and always full for their members to enjoy a safe environment. You understand what I mean here? Let's just make sure that we can implement and execute on those things in which we've set in place in the first instance. Organisations can make great statements. They can come out with these wonderful community messages. But if at ground level you are not implementing and executing a plan to make sure that is in place, then everything that head office has said is just all BS. You may as well throw it all out because it has no meaning, and head office are really just losing that consumer confidence, which is so important. So my fifth area is to make sure that people are accountable and responsible for delivering on those things that you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do them, and make sure that your team do the same. So that's it from me. That's my update. I hope I've got the coronavirus information that I've shared with you. I hope that hit the spot and resonated with you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find out more about what I do. Visit my website at tickthoseboxes.com.au, or you can send me an email at df@tickthoseboxes.com.au. My name's Darren Finkelstein. I'm the accountability guy, and I'm absolutely 100% committed and focused to making sure you and your team do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Until next time, talk to you soon. Be safe, and make sure you use those hand wipes. See ya.